One song, 7 years. 3 timelines. When Princess Zelda played the Song of Time at the end of Ocarina of Time, she didn't just send Link back to his childhood, she fractured reality itself. What Nintendo confirmed in 2011 shocked even the most dedicated fans. Link's time travel didn't just change history, it created 3 separate universes that would each spawn their own legends, their own heroes, and their own versions of eternal conflict. But the truth about how time travel actually works in Zelda, the mechanics, the consequences, the paradoxes that still haunt the lore, goes far deeper than most players realize. The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, released in November 1998 for the Nintendo 64, established time travel as a core mechanic of the series. Link's ability to move between childhood and adulthood by placing or removing the Master Sword from the pedestal of time became the foundation for the game's puzzles, story, and ultimately the entire chronology of the franchise. But the time travel in Ocarina of Time operates on specific rules that differ from typical science fiction conventions and create unique paradoxes that Nintendo had to address when they finally released the official timeline in Hyrule Historia in 2011. The mechanics start simple. Young Link collects the 3 spiritual stones, the Kokiri's Emerald from inside the Great Deku Tree, the Goron's Ruby from Dodongo's Cavern, and the Zora's Sapphire from inside Lord Jabu Jabu's belly. With these stones and the Ocarina of Time that Princess Zelda throws to Link as she flees Ganondorf, Link opens the Door of Time in the Temple of Time and accesses the Master Sword. When he pulls the sword from the pedestal of time, Rauru, the Sage of Light, speaks to Link in the Chamber of Sages and explains what happened. According to Rauru, the Master Sword is a sacred blade that evil ones may never touch. Only one worthy of the title of Hero of Time can pull it from the pedestal of time. However, Link was too young to be the Hero of Time when he pulled the sword. Rauru sealed Link away for 7 years, preserving his spirit in the Chamber of Sages until his body had matured enough to wield the Master Sword properly. This isn't traditional time travel. Link doesn't experience those 7 years. His consciousness skips forward while his body ages in suspended animation. During those 7 years, Ganondorf follows Link through the open door of time and enters the Sacred Realm, where he touches the Triforce. Because his heart is unbalanced, full of power but lacking wisdom and courage, the Triforce splits into 3 pieces. Ganondorf retains the Triforce of Power, Princess Zelda receives the Triforce of Wisdom, and Link receives the Triforce of Courage. With the Triforce of Power, Ganondorf transforms Hyrule into a nightmare kingdom where monsters roam freely and the various races suffer under his tyranny. When Link awakens as an adult 7 years later, he discovers a world he inadvertently helped destroy. By opening the Door of Time, he gave Ganondorf the very access he needed to claim the Triforce. This guilt, the knowledge that his heroic quest enabled the villain's rise to power, becomes a central theme of Ocarina of Time's narrative. But here's where the time travel mechanics become crucial. Throughout the game, Link can return the Master Sword to the pedestal of time and travel back to being a child. Then he can pull the sword again and return to the adult timeline. Players use this ability constantly to solve puzzles, planting magic beans as a child and harvesting them as an adult, opening paths in one time period that affect the other, accessing areas only available to young Link or adult Link. The critical question is, does this constant back and forth create timeline splits? According to the game's internal logic and Nintendo's later clarifications, the answer is no. As long as Link uses the Master Sword as the mechanism for travel, he's moving along a single timeline. When young Link plants a bean and adult Link finds a grown plant, that's because time continued flowing normally in the adult era while Link was experiencing his childhood. The game treats both time periods as existing simultaneously, with Link's consciousness jumping between them, but only one Link existing at any given moment in each era. This mechanic works because Link essentially swaps places with himself. When adult Link returns the Master Sword to the pedestal, his adult body enters the Chamber of Sages, the suspended animation state, and his childhood consciousness returns to the moment after he first pulled the sword. When young Link pulls the sword again, his child body enters the Chamber of Sages, and his adult consciousness returns to the adult timeline. The Master Sword acts as an anchor point, maintaining continuity. But at the end of Ocarina of Time, something different happens. After Link defeats Ganondorf and the 7 sages seal the King of Evil in the Sacred Realm, Princess Zelda does something unprecedented.
She uses the Ocarina of Time, combined with her powers as the Seventh Sage and the bearer of the Triforce of Wisdom, to send Link back to his childhood in a way that's fundamentally different from his previous time travel. In the final cutscene, Zelda tells Link that all the tragedy that befell Hyrule was her doing. She was too young to comprehend the consequences of trying to control the Sacred Realm. She asks Link to return the Master Sword to the pedestal of time and instructs him to regain your lost time. She plays the Song of Time on the ocarina, and Link returns to his childhood. The post-credits scene shows Link as a child in the Temple of Time, where Navi departs without a word. Then Link appears in the courtyard of Hyrule Castle, meeting Princess Zelda for what appears to be the first time, the same meeting that occurred at the beginning of the game before Link collected the spiritual stones. This moment is critical because it establishes that Zelda didn't just send Link back 7 years, she sent him back to before his adventure began, creating a new past where Link retains his memories from the future timeline. According to Hyrule Historia and statements from series producer Eiji Aonuma, this final time travel is what splits the timeline. The adult timeline continues to exist, the one Link just left, where Ganondorf is sealed and the Seven Sages maintain their vigil, but now there's also a child timeline, where young Link returns with knowledge of Ganondorf's treachery. In this new past, Link warns Princess Zelda about Ganondorf before the Gerudo King can enact his plan, changing the course of history. The child timeline leads directly into Majora's Mask, which begins with young Link searching the lost woods for a beloved and invaluable friend, implied but never explicitly confirmed to be Navi. The opening text of Majora's Mask explains that after battling evil and saving the land of Hyrule, Link embarked on a secret and personal journey. This personal journey is what Link can pursue because in this timeline he prevented Ganondorf's rise to power before it began. The backstory of Twilight Princess, which also takes place in the child timeline, reveals what happened to Ganondorf in this altered history. According to the game's lore, Zelda and the royal family of Hyrule captured Ganondorf and sentenced him to execution. The ancient sages, 6 ghostly figures who guard the Mirror of Twilight, attempted to execute Ganondorf at the Arbiter's grounds by stabbing him with the sword of the 6 sages. But the Triforce of Power, which Ganondorf still possesses from the original timeline, manifests and prevents his death. The sages, realizing execution is impossible, instead banish Ganondorf to the Twilight Realm through the Mirror of Twilight. This creates an interesting paradox. How does Ganondorf have the Triforce of Power in the child timeline when the Triforce split in the adult timeline after Link pulled the Master Sword and Ganondorf entered the Sacred Realm, events that never happened in the child timeline? The answer lies in the nature of the Triforce pieces as divine artifacts that transcend normal time. When Link returns to the past with his Triforce of Courage, which manifests on his hand when he meets Zelda, the Triforce recognizes the imbalance. Ganondorf still bears the mark of power from his actions in the alternate timeline, creating a destiny that the Triforce fulfills even in this changed history. The adult timeline, meanwhile, continues without Link. After Zelda sent the hero of time back to his childhood, the adult era loses its hero permanently. According to the prologue of The Wind Waker, when Ganondorf eventually broke free from the seal placed by the 7 sages, the people prayed to the gods for the hero of time to appear and save them again. But the hero did not come. He couldn't come. He no longer existed in that timeline. The gods' response was drastic. Rather than allow Ganondorf to conquer and corrupt Hyrule permanently, the gods flooded the entire kingdom. They sealed Ganondorf and his power beneath the ocean, and instructed certain people to escape to the mountaintops, which became islands in what would be called the Great Sea. The Wind Waker takes place centuries after this flood, in a world where Hyrule is a legendary kingdom beneath the waves, and a new Link must prove himself worthy despite having no connection to the hero of time. This timeline presents one of the most profound consequences of Zelda's decision to send Link back. By removing the hero from the adult timeline to give him back his lost childhood in another timeline, she doomed the adult timeline to exist without a hero. The Link who grew to adulthood fighting Ganondorf, who awakened the 7 sages, who befriended Darunia and Ruto and Saria, that Link no longer exists in that timeline. His relationships he built, the growth he experienced, the person he became, all of it remains only in his own memories and in the memories of those who knew him before he vanished. This raises a troubling philosophical question that fans have debated since the timeline split was first revealed. Was Zelda right to send Link back? She gave him his lost childhood, allowing him to grow up naturally instead of being thrust into adulthood through magic.
But she also erased his existence from the timeline he fought to save, abandoning that world to face Ganondorf's eventual return without its greatest defender. The hero's Shade, a mysterious ghost warrior who teaches Link sword techniques in Twilight Princess, is revealed in Hyrule Historia to be the spirit of the Hero of Time from the Child timeline, a Link who died with regrets, who felt his heroic achievements were never properly recognized, who became a wandering spirit teaching the next generation. But the timeline complexity doesn't end with two branches. Hyrule Historia introduced a third branch that shocked many fans, the Fallen Hero timeline, also called the Downfall timeline. According to the official chronology, this timeline splits from Ocarina of Time at the point of Link's final battle with Ganondorf. In the adult and child timelines, Link defeats Ganondorf, but the Fallen Hero timeline explores what happens if Link fails, if the Hero of Time dies in battle and Ganondorf obtains the complete Triforce. This branch is different from the other two because it's hypothetical rather than causal. The adult and child timeline split occurs because Zelda actively creates two versions of history through time travel. The Fallen Hero timeline exists as an alternate possibility, a what-if scenario that Nintendo used to place older games that didn't fit neatly into the other two branches. Games like A Link to the Past, the original Legend of Zelda, and Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link all exist in the Fallen Hero timeline. The Fallen Hero timeline's backstory, according to both A Link to the Past's original manual and Hyrule Historia, describes an imprisoning war. After Link falls and Ganondorf obtains the complete Triforce, the Seven Sages and the Knights of Hyrule battle Ganondorf's forces. Unable to defeat the King of Evil, the sages seal him in the Sacred Realm, which his evil transforms into the Dark World. This seal creates a temporary peace, but Ganon's influence continues to corrupt Hyrule for generations. The Fallen Hero timeline becomes the darkest of the three branches, where Hyrule faces decline and repeated crises without the successful hero to save it. Critics of the Fallen Hero timeline argue that it's narratively unsatisfying, a deus ex machina solution to timeline placement problems rather than a natural consequence of in-game events. Unlike the adult and child splits, which result from Zelda's deliberate action that players witness, the Fallen Hero split requires accepting that somewhere, in some version of events, Link simply lost. The game never shows this. Players who defeat Ganondorf can't access a bad ending where Link fails. The Fallen Hero timeline exists entirely in lore and backstory, never depicted in actual gameplay. Supporters of the three-timeline structure point to the Triforce's symbolism. The Triforce consists of three pieces: power, wisdom, and courage. Having three timeline branches mirrors this fundamental trinity, with each branch arguably representing one virtue. The Fallen Hero timeline, dominated by Ganon's power, shows a Hyrule in decline. The Child timeline, shaped by Zelda's wisdom in sending Link back to prevent Ganondorf's rise, explores consequences of changing the past. The adult timeline, defined by Link's courage in facing impossible odds before vanishing, explores a world that must find new heroes when the old ones can't return. The mechanics of how Link's regular time travel differs from Zelda's final send-off reveal important truths about the Zelda universe's rules. When Link uses the Master Sword to travel, he's moving along a single continuous timeline. The Master Sword acts as a synchronization point, ensuring only one Link exists consciously at any moment, while the other remains in suspended animation. Time continues flowing in both eras, maintaining causality. This explains why changes Link makes as a child affect the adult timeline, because they're the same timeline viewed from different points. But Zelda's time travel using the Ocarina of Time and her sage powers works differently. She doesn't just move Link backward along the existing timeline, she creates a new past that diverges from the established present. Link doesn't enter suspended animation, he returns with his full consciousness, memories, and the physical changes from his experiences, including the Triforce of Courage marked on his hand.
This violation of normal time travel rules is what creates the split. The adult present continues existing because Zelda didn't rewind time or undo events. She created an additional past where those events can now be prevented. This distinction is crucial because it explains why other instances of time travel in the series don't create timeline splits. In Oracle of Ages, Nehru, the Oracle of Ages, can move Link through time using the Harp of Ages, but these trips don't split the timeline because Link returns to the same timeline he left. In Skyward Sword, Link travels through gates of time to different eras, but again, these are movements along a single timeline, rather than the creation of alternate timelines. Even in Majora's Mask, where Link repeatedly resets 3 days by playing the Song of Time, the game treats this as rewinding a single timeline, rather than creating branches.
The unique nature of Zelda's action at the end of Ocarina of Time, using the Ocarina of Time combined with her powers as a sage and the bearer of the Triforce of Wisdom, represents the only time in the series where time travel definitively creates a permanent split. Other time travel is essentially temporary, reversible, or occurs along a single causal chain. Only Zelda's intervention creates multiple permanent realities. The implications of this extend beyond narrative convenience. If the goddesses Din, Nehru, and Furore designed the Triforce and established the systems of sages and heroes, they presumably anticipated time travel. The fact that time travel typically doesn't create splits suggests the goddesses built temporal stability into reality. But the unique combination of factors at Ocarina of Time's ending, the Triforce split among 3 bearers, the Sage of Light's powers, the Ocarina of Time's magic, and the Hero of Time's unique status, created a perfect storm that exceeded normal temporal safeguards. This raises a disturbing possibility. The timeline split might not have been Zelda's choice alone. It might have been the only possible outcome given the circumstances. If the goddesses designed reality with temporal safeguards, those safeguards might prevent certain changes. When Zelda tried to send Link back to prevent the tragedy, reality couldn't accommodate rewriting 7 years of established history without creating a parallel timeline. The adult timeline had to continue existing because too many people, too many events, and too much change had occurred to simply erase. Zelda didn't create a timeline split by choice. She triggered one as an unavoidable consequence of attempting something reality couldn't fully accommodate. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom complicate the timeline further. According to interviews with series producer Eiji Aonuma and director Hidemaru Fujibayashi, these games take place at the end of one of the 3 timelines, but which timeline is deliberately left to player interpretation. Creating a Champion, the official companion book for Breath of the Wild, states that everything before the game's backstory has faded to myth and legend. The games reference elements from all 3 timeline branches. The Zora monuments mention Ruto from Ocarina of Time, various locations are named after characters from multiple games, and the history described doesn't clearly match any single branch. Some fans theorize that the 3 timelines converge before Breath of the Wild, merging back into a single history after tens of thousands of years. This convergence would parallel how Zelda created the split. If her unique combination of powers could split time, perhaps another unique set of circumstances could reunite it. Others argue the games simply exist in a soft reboot, where Nintendo isn't concerning itself with precise timeline placement, treating the 3 branches as alternate mythologies that all contribute to the distant future's legends. Tears of the Kingdom adds another layer by introducing time travel again through Zelda's transformation into the Light Dragon and her journey into Hyrule's ancient past. In the game, Zelda witnesses the founding of Hyrule by King Rauru and Queen Sonia, sees the original Ganondorf's attack, and swallows a secret stone to become an immortal dragon so her power can reach Link in the present. This creates apparent contradictions with established timeline lore. Hyrule's founding as depicted in Tears of the Kingdom doesn't match the founding described in other games, and the presence of a Ganondorf sealed beneath the castle seems incompatible with the various Ganons and Ganondorfs across the timeline. The ambiguity might be intentional. By placing Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom so far in the future that precise timeline placement becomes impossible, Nintendo gains creative freedom while maintaining that the games are canonical. The developers have suggested that after enough time, all 3 timelines might lead to similar outcomes, that despite branching, the destiny of Hyrule leads back to similar patterns of conflict, similar incarnations of Link and Zelda, and similar manifestations of Ganon's hatred.
This touches on another critical aspect of time travel in Zelda lore, the cycle of reincarnation. The cursed demise places on Link and Zelda at the end of Skyward Sword that an incarnation of his hatred will forever pursue those who bear the blood of the goddess and the spirit of the hero, creates a metatemporal cycle that transcends individual timelines. Even when time splits into 3 branches, each branch still contains the curse. Each timeline generates its own Links, its own Zeldas, and its own manifestations of evil. This suggests that time travel, no matter how dramatic, can't break the fundamental cycle. Zelda sent Link back to give him his childhood and prevent Ganondorf's rise, but in the child timeline, Ganondorf still poses a threat, necessitating his execution and banishment. In the adult timeline, Ganondorf still escapes his seal, requiring the gods to flood Hyrule. In the Fallen Hero timeline, Ganon dominates multiple eras despite being sealed repeatedly. The cycle persists across all branches, suggesting that the curse operates at a level beyond time. The Master Sword's role in time travel also carries deeper significance. The blade appears in multiple timelines despite being a singular artifact forged in Skyward Sword. The sword exists across all 3 branches, waiting for each timeline's version of Link to claim it.
This implies the Master Sword itself exists partially outside normal time, or that the sword's creation in Skyward Sword somehow predestined its existence in all subsequent timelines regardless of splits. In Wind Waker, the Master Sword requires the prayers of sages to maintain its power. When Link finds the sword in the submerged Hyrule Castle, it has lost its power to repel evil because the Earth Sage Larudo and the Wind Sage Fado were killed by Ganondorf. This temporal connection, where sages from one era must continuously maintain a sword forged in a completely different era, suggests the Master Sword functions as a temporal anchor, a constant presence across all of Hyrule's history that maintains some level of continuity even when timelines split. The ethical implications of time travel in Zelda extend beyond Zelda's decision at Ocarina of Time's ending. If creating timeline splits is possible, even if difficult, it raises questions about responsibility. In the adult timeline, the people who lived through Ganondorf's rule, who suffered for 7 years while Link was sealed, who built lives and communities in that dark era, did they deserve to be abandoned when Link vanished back to his childhood? The 7 sages who awakened, who sacrificed their normal lives to seal Ganondorf, did they deserve to maintain that seal forever in a timeline without a hero to help them? From Link's perspective, the question is equally troubling. The friendships he formed as an adult, with Darunia the Goron, with Ruto the Zora princess, with his childhood friend Saria, who awakened as the Forest Sage, exist only in his memory in the child timeline. When he returns to the past, he's the only one who remembers the future. He meets child Ruto, knowing that in another timeline, she became a sage and loved him. He sees the Gorons thriving, knowing that in another timeline, he watched them face extinction. He carries the weight of an entire timeline that no one else remembers. This isolation might explain the hero's shade in Twilight Princess. The ghostly warrior who teaches Link advanced combat techniques is confirmed to be the hero of time, and he explicitly laments that he was never recognized for his heroic deeds. In the child timeline, Link prevented Ganondorf's rise before it began, meaning the prophecy of the hero of time never truly manifested. He never grew to adulthood fighting through temples, never awakened sages, never became the legend that existed in the adult timeline. He lived and died without that recognition, carrying memories of heroism that in his timeline never happened. The paradoxes of Zelda's time travel also extend to physical objects. At the end of Ocarina of Time, young Link possesses items and knowledge from his adult experiences. He has the Triforce of Courage marked on his hand, though in this new past, the Triforce hasn't split. In Majora's Mask, Link carries items from Ocarina of Time, including the Ocarina of Time itself, which Zelda gives him for his journey, the same ocarina she used to send him back to the past. This creates a causal loop. The ocarina exists in Link's possession because Zelda used it to send him to the past, where Zelda then gives it to him. These paradoxes are resolved if we accept that Zelda's time travel created copies rather than moving objects backward in time.
The adult timeline keeps its version of the Ocarina of Time, and a duplicate appears in the child timeline because Zelda's power reconstructed it. Similarly, Link's Triforce of Courage exists in both timelines, in the adult timeline as part of the sealed Ganondorf scenario, and in the child timeline as a mark that destiny brings to Link despite the changed history.
The splitting of timelines based on Ocarina of Time also creates interesting questions about predestination versus free will. In the adult timeline, events unfold as they naturally would after Link pulled the Master Sword. Ganondorf rules, Link awakens as an adult, defeats Ganondorf, and the King of Evil is sealed. These events seem to follow a predetermined path, but Zelda's creation of the child timeline suggests free will exists. History can be changed. Different choices can lead to different outcomes. Yet, in each timeline, the cycle continues. No matter what choices Link and Zelda make, no matter how time splits or reconverges, evil returns. Ganondorf escapes his seal, or a new Ganondorf is born, or some other manifestation of evil emerges. The specific events change, but the pattern remains constant. This suggests that while individuals have free will to make choices, those choices occur within larger cycles that resist fundamental change. Time can branch, but all branches lead to similar destinations, an eternal struggle between good and evil, courage against power, wisdom against darkness. Looking at time travel in Zelda holistically reveals a universe where time is malleable, but not infinitely so. The goddesses built certain safeguards and structures. Time travel typically occurs along a single causal chain, with travelers either moving through established history or making changes that the timeline absorbs without splitting. Only under extraordinary circumstances, the unique combination of the Triforce split, Sage powers, and the Ocarina of Time, does time split into persistent branches. This makes Ocarina of Time's ending not just a narrative moment, but a cosmological rupture. Link and Zelda, through desperation and love, her desire to give him back what he lost, his willingness to leave behind the person he became, broke reality in a way that was never supposed to happen. The three-timeline structure isn't a feature of the universe, it's a consequence of extraordinary individuals pushing beyond normal limits in an impossible situation. And that might be the hidden truth about time travel in Zelda lore. It's not meant to work the way it did at the end of Ocarina of Time. The goddesses didn't design reality to split into three branches. Zelda's act of sending Link back, motivated by guilt and compassion, achieved something that should have been impossible. She gave Link his lost time, but at a cost the entire universe still bears. A fractured timeline where three separate histories unfold simultaneously, where heroes rise and fall in parallel worlds, where the cycle of evil never ends because evil exists in 3 times the configurations. Time travel in Zelda isn't about fixing mistakes or preventing tragedies. It's about the inescapable weight of choice. Zelda chose to save Link's childhood, creating a timeline where he could grow up naturally. She also chose to abandon the adult timeline to face Ganondorf's return without a hero. Link chose to accept her gift, leaving behind everyone he'd fought alongside. And all of Hyrule, across 3 timelines and countless generations, lives with the consequences of that single moment when a princess played a song and shattered time itself. The legacy of that moment echoes through every Zelda game that followed. The splits created in Ocarina of Time define the structure of the entire series, but they also create a kind of tragic poetry. The idea that even with godlike power, even with time travel and magic and divine artifacts, suffering can't be erased without consequences. Every choice creates ripples. Every attempt to fix the past creates new problems in new presents. And through it all, the cycle continues. Heroes rise, and time proves that even when split 3 ways, destiny finds a way to repeat itself.